السلام عليكم شباب، إن شاء الله تكونون بصحة وسلامة وعافية. موضوعنا اليوم الجديد اللي هو الأنجل موديوليشن. موضوعنا اليوم الجديد هو الأنجل موديوليشن. الأنجل موديوليشن انتبه عليه شباب. General speaking the modulated signal would be as you seen cosine omega ct plus r of t. زين، او مرات احنا او مرات نقول هذا الترم نختصره بثيتا اوف تي. زين، انتبهوا عليه. هذا هو general formula. ال A of t represent the amplitude of the modulated signal. ال omega c, as you know, the carrier of the modulated signal, and r of t represent phase and frequency of the modulated signal. In amplitude modulation, the amplitude of the modulated signal is linearly related to the amplitude of the information signal. يعني there is a linear relationship between the amplitude of the modulated signal and the information signal. بنقول linear relationship, it means معادلة من الدرجة الأولى. First linear equation. It means معادلة من الدرجة الأولى. يعني ال f of t equals at plus b, where a and b are constant. For example, this is a first order equation. So when we say that there's a linear relationship between the information signal and the amplitude of the modulated signal, this type of modulation called amplitude modulation, independent of the type of the amplitude modulation, whether we are speaking about double sideband, single sideband, vestigial sideband, subpascalial, large carrier, independent of the type of the AM modulation. Now, let's talk about R of t. R of t, it's obvious, has a frequency and phase. For example, we can consider R of t as an instantaneous frequency, and a phase. If the phase is linearly proportional to the amplitude of the information signal, this type of modulation, we call it phase modulation. If the instantaneous frequency of the modulated signal is linearly proportional to the amplitude of the information signal, this type of modulation is called FM modulation. This type of frequency is called amplitude modulation. So let's begin from the beginning. Talk from the beginning. If this is the general formula of A of t, p cosine omega ct plus r of t. Okay. If we are now talking with angle modulation, so the amplitude of the modulated signal is constant. So we can replace the amplitude we can replace the amplitude as a constant, because as we said, in angle modulation, the amplitude of the modulation signal is constant. We can replace omega ct with r of t. So the modulated signal can be written as follows: theta of t. And this can be equals e to the j theta of t. Please do not forget this. As you know, cosine x equals e to the jx plus e to the minus jx, as you remember. So e to the jx is the real value of cosine x. Okay, this is the real part of cosine x. If we return back, then the theta of t, it's obvious from the above equation that theta of t equals omega ct plus r of t. Now let's talk about the first type of angle modulation, which is the phase modulation. The first type of angle modulation, we call it phase modulation. PM. Please remember the following. For PM, the instantaneous frequency of the modulated signal is linearly proportional to the amplitude of the information signal. And this is so obvious from the following equation. Theta of t equals omega ct plus k sub p phi of t plus theta naught. Remember, this is the omega ct and r of t. R of t equals k of t plus theta naught. First order equation. R of t equals k of t plus theta naught. هذا هو first order equation. That means the initial phase is a constant and k is also constant, but we said k sub p because we are talking about phase modulation. So omega c, k sub p, theta naught, all are constant. Now the instantaneous value of the frequency would be the derivative of the phase. And if we derive the above equation, we will get k sub c plus k sub p with the derivative of f of t. So such an equation is so important. If we turn back to the another type, of the angle modulation, which is the frequency modulation. FM. Listen now. The instantaneous frequency of the FM equals omega c plus K sub F fill of T. As we said before, the instantaneous frequency of Fm has a linear relationship with the information signal. And the instantaneous frequency of the Fm has a linear relationship with the amplitude of the information signal. يعني معادلة من الدرجة الأولى، الأوميجا I equals constant plus a variable multiplied by f of t. Now, if we want to take the phase from this equation, theta of t here we will integrate omega I of t. Omega I delta omega. ايش راح يطلع عندنا؟ راح يطلع عندنا الأوميجا سي تي بلس تي في الكي سب اف في الاف زائد الانيشال فيس هسه صار عندنا معادلتين رئيسية. طبعا انتم تذكروا انه الموديوليتد سيجنال تساوي لنا A في real value مالت من e to the j theta of t. فصارت عندنا theta of t هنا هي خاصة بالPM، وعندنا theta of t هنا خاصة بالFM. يعني إذا دخلنا information، انتبه علي هسه كل زين، إذا دخلنا أي information signal على PM modulation شو راح تولد لي؟ راح تولد لي modulated signal، نوعها ايش؟ نوعها PM طبعا. طيب إذا تشوف هاي المعادلة تقارنها، هاي المعادلة مال PM مع المعادلة مالت الFM، راح تشوف هاي المعادلة تشبه هواية هاي المعادلة. الفرق بيناتهن انه نسوي انتجريتر للاف اوف تي. يعني اذا جت الاف اوف تي هنا ودخلناها على انتجريتر، بعدين دخلناها على بي ام، ايش راح يولد لي؟ راح يولد لي اف ام سيجنال. هذا لازم تفتهموا الكلام، لانه هذا راح يوضح لك العلاقة بين البي ام والاف ام. معناها اني راح من هذه الفقرين راح اقدر اولد من بي ام موديوليتر، اولد اف ام سيجنال باستخدام ايش؟ باستخدام انتجريتر. طيب the same thing is applied when we are talking about FM signal. When I am talking about FM signal، يعني إذا عندي FM modulation، في احتياجي السيجنال اللي راح تطلع لي هي modulated signal with FM modulation احتياجي. لكن إذا دخلت انت differentiator، هاي المرة بالعكس، أدخل differentiator before I enter the FM modulation، راح يولد لي إيش؟ راح يولد لي modulated signal نوعها PM. هذا الموضوع مهم. راح نتحدث هسه عن شيء آخر. هسه شوف هذه الفيجر لو تشوفوه أمامكم، أنت شو عندك هنا؟ عندك ديجيتال سيجنال has 0 and 1. مثلا خلينا نقول -5 و +5 for example. زين، نبدي بالديجيتال لأنه هو شوي عندنا أسهل للتوضيح. نبدي فهنا إذا افترض بأنه أنا عندي FM على سبيل المثال، راح أبدي بFM. فأنت عندك you have just two amplitude, -5 and +5. So the modulated signal of a digital data would have two frequencies. For example, F0 for the -5 and F1 for +1. You just have two amplitude, so you just have two frequencies. طبعا لازم تلاحظ ان هنا الامبليتيود of the modulated signal has a constant amplitude, and the same principles applied for the PM. The same principles are applied for PM. In PM you just have two value. For example, هنا for -1 you have minus sine omega ct. Okay, and for +1 لهاي المنطقة من هنا إلى هنا هذا minus sine، من هنا إلى هنا عندك sine omega ct. فإذا you have the same frequency but phase different. You have a phase different from -1 to +1. يعني in such a case we have two frequencies. هنا cosine omega naught t وهنا cosine omega 1 t. Cosine omega naught t. You have two frequencies, omega naught with omega 1. But in PM the frequency is constant, but the difference is in the phase. We have nana minus sign and half sign. Look, now let's talk about not a digital signal but an analog signal. So look at this. This is an analog signal, which is a sinusoidal signal, but it has a frequency much less than the carrier signal. Okay, for FM, for example, look at this. When the amplitude is decreasing, the frequency is decreasing. As soon as the amplitude is increasing, the frequency is increasing. And when the amplitude of the information signal is returned down, okay, the frequency of the modulated signal will be decreased as the amplitude is decreased, and the same principles applied for the PM, but it's just more complicated. راح نكمل لكم إن شاء الله باكر بحيل الله تكملة المحاضرة حتى ما تطول وتقدرون تحملوها، ومع التقدير وإن شاء الله نسمع أخباركم الطيبة وأنتم متواصلين وياي.